I'm a Venice, California-born, Los Angeles-based sports fan, one that has played, coached, announced, and promoted sports my whole life. My love affair with sports started in my own backyard and has led me to this podcast. Thanks to the support of the Amateur Athletic Union in East Bay, I'm excited to bring you Sports Stories with Denny Lennon. Welcome to Episode 7 of Sports Stories with Denny Lennon. First, wanted to remind all our viewers and listeners that you can interact with the show on our website at sportsstoriespodcast.com. There are links to all our social media, a blog, and related archives. We have a fan from Oklahoma City. Her name is Chelsea Lee, and Chelsea sent us an email about our last guest, Teresa Parmenter, governor of the AAU Iowa District. Governor Parmenter was a great story. It's good to see strong women like her, Sister Martha, and even Officer Stacy Sheridan included in your podcast. Thanks, Chelsea. I was fortunate to grow up in a big family with a ton of cousins, and most all of us love to play sports. The street I grew up on, Harding Avenue, was about a mile from the beach in Venice, California, which is on the west side of Los Angeles. The street was, of course, named for the 29th President of the United States, Warren G. Harding. Wait, Warren G? No. Not Dr. Dre's stepbrother that regulates with Nate Dogg. Warren Gamaliel Harding of Ohio, the guy that regulated the Teapot Dome scandal. Like a lot of kids, we skateboarded Dogtown and played typical neighborhood games like kick the can or capture the flag. But really it was touch football on the street, half-court driveway basketball, or even wiffle ball games that were the best. If we were ever short a player, Jim Mandel would fill in. He was middle-aged, odd, and maybe not now would be the appropriate person to be playing with kids. Harding Avenue had some good-sized homes with backyards and front yards big enough for small-sized volleyball courts. It was on those courts that, along with my cousins and friends, we built up the Venice Backyard Championship, which, from the early 80s through the mid-90s, was a legendary tournament. The story of that event is for another time, but the idea that big things can indeed happen on your own block speaks to the guest for this episode. My guest today, Charles Oliver, grew up in modest circumstances in Columbus, Georgia, which then was a town of about 100,000 people, about 100 miles south of Atlanta. Much like Forrest Gump took to running, who grew up in a state over in the rural area of Alabama, Charles learned to run in a completely authentic way. As a youngster, Charles and his 5th Street buddies would periodically race the 3rd Street kids, with telephone poles marking the handoff areas for the relay races. He would run to the store for his mother, which was about a quarter mile away, and later, Charles would win the state high school 400-yard race. Charles never stopped running. He would go on to a stellar college career and make a run at the Olympics before returning to coach at his high school and college, both of which he is now a member of their respective Hall of Fames. Earning the moniker of Coach O, his dedication and attention to detail led him to a highly successful career as a coach, an entrepreneur, and a family man. He rose the ranks of the AAU to the position of national chair for the track and field program. Coach O had talent, but his extraordinary achievements certainly came by the way of hard work and careful planning. The great teacher and UCLA basketball coach that has won more NCAA championships than any other coach in history didn't actually talk a whole lot about winning with his teams.
I don't think you can find any players that tell me they ever heard me mention winning. I wanted winning to be the byproduct of the preparation, and failure to prepare is preparing to fail. And I wanted them to always have that satisfaction within themselves, that peace of mind within themselves, to know that they'd made the effort to execute near their own particular level of competency. Not trying to be better than someone else, but trying to be the best that you could be.
Well, now that I've dropped Winnie, Warren G., Dr. Dre, Nate Dogg, Dogtown, Jim and Dale, the VBC, and Forrest Gump, run, Coach O, run! From the AAU Leadership Convention at the Hyatt Regency Hotel in Orange County, California, here's my Sports Stories interview with the National Chair of AAU Track and Field, Charles Oliver. All right. I think you and I first met maybe in New York as part of the Sullivan Committee, right?
Yes, I remember that probably two or
3 years ago. Sure.
Yeah.
And then I'd heard about you because I was always impressed when I'm in my circles. I'd always go by coach, because that's one of the beautiful things about being a coach is your community constantly calls you coach. But for the AAU community to keep calling somebody Coach O, I said, man, this guy must be really good at something. And you're such a modest guy until I looked you up and did a little research. I didn't realize your accomplishments.
Well,
They're impressive. So, born in Georgia.
Yes.
Yeah, in Columbus. Is that right?
Georgia. Yes.
Yeah. And what was so you're born there, and then your parents? How'd you get to Georgia?
Well, I was born in Columbus, Georgia, and I think one of the things is a part of the foundation of me getting involved in athletics. I said that I was a nerd in high school. I literally did not become an athlete until March of my senior year in high school.
Yeah, that's really interesting. Now, what did your father do?
He worked for. He was a laborer at Tom Houston Peanut Company. Yeah.
Okay. Oh, interesting. All right. Because there's a lot of peanut. Yeah. And what about your mother?
She was a laborer also.
Okay.
Yes.
So you're coming up, and what took so long to get involved in athletics, or did you do any other sports prior to that senior year of your high
No,
school?
I didn't do any sports. I was in the band for 6 years, middle school through high school.
Okay.
And I kind of always, everybody wanted to be an athlete. Everybody wanted to be the star and stuff. But I say, unfortunately for me, I grew up in a neighborhood. I grew up on Fifth Avenue in Columbus, Georgia. There were a lot of athletes on Third Avenue. And so we would basically have what we call block track meets Third Avenue against Fifth Avenue.
Is that right?
And I would always anchor the relay for Fifth Avenue. And I had a friend of mine that he anchored the relay for Third Avenue, and we lost every single time and I ran against the same guy every single time. And then we pretty much got to high school. And I was in. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
That's really interesting. Wait, tell me about these blocks. This is really interesting.
Well,
tell me about this. Like, so who organized this? Who would go? Hey, all you guys on Third block. Would you play?
And
did you run on 4th Street or something?
I don't know why we decided to have block track meets, but we would run 4x1 relay.
It's
basically.
Wow.
And the exchange zones were literally telephone pole to telephone pole.
Fascinating. Was this commonplace in different states, or is it just how you grew up? That's what you did.
Just in the neighborhood.
So that's fascinating.
I really didn't even know anything about track and field.
So here's a transfer zone or whatever.
Hey, get to the telephone. I would stand at this telephone pole, and when the guy got close enough to give me the baton, I would go out and grab the baton, and I think I always anchored.
I love that.
And so
that's what you did when you were little, like 9, 10, 11, 12 kind of.
So
you knew you were fast. But you didn't.
No, I knew.
I
think there was a couple of things that in my life that kind of prepared me for my athletic competition.
Okay.
Like I said, we would run the 4x1 relay from telephone to telephone.
Sure.
Then we had a situation to where back in that time growing up, you had neighborhood grocery stores. So we literally had 2 grocery stores in my neighborhood. We would be out playing like sandlot football there in front of my home, and my mom would come in and she'd say, "Hey, I need you to go to the grocery store." Right in the middle of the game. Mom didn't care that we had a game going on, and you can't say, "Hey, Mom, wait until." It's like, go now. So she literally would give me the money, and I would run to the grocery store. Grocery store, I would run to the grocery store, buy whatever she wanted, and I'd run back home. As I got older and started thinking about my career, I realized that both grocery stores were approximately 400 meters from my house.
You got to be kidding.
I ended up being a quarter miler.
Yeah, no, isn't that something?
Then we had a third situation where we would do what we call run the cemetery. My house was, my backyard was basically a cemetery, which was a couple of miles around. And if we ran the cemetery, we would literally run the cemetery route. The thing was not to win, it was not to be last.
Okay.
Because that was a punishment, let's call it, for the guy that was in last place.
What do you have to do?
So you literally
like sleep in the cemetery at night or something?
You had to everybody was allowed to hit you.
Oh boy. Yeah, well sure.
So everybody would hit you
so
if you was in last place.
Their free shot in.
So you were running to not be last place. You didn't care who won, just don't be last.
I think there's really something to be said for that kind of initial entry into, call it athletics, is that it's so authentic that you probably kind of map some long-term love of it, because it's always going to remind you of nice childhood times. It's like playing, football in the front street, or it's like, when you mentioned about going to the store for your mom. I used to dribble a basketball back and forth, and my deal with my mom was it wouldn't be more than a grocery bag that I'd have to go for, so I could work on my left hand on the way back. And so you're right.
Okay.
So and that brings back really good memories. Okay, so now what instrument, by the way, did you play in high school?
I
the
think
band?
in middle school it was E-flat horn.
Okay.
When I got to high school, they didn't have E-flat horns or whatever, because I couldn't afford to buy one. So when we went into the instrument room, and they said, well, get you an instrument. Well, all of the popular instruments had already been taken, so I got the E-flat horn. And then when I got to high school, they didn't have an E-flat horn. So all they had left was a French horn, which was similar, they tell me. But now I go from playing with my right hand to playing with my left hand. I'm right-handed.
Sure.
So it's like, okay,
But you figured it out.
I wasn't very good. I was in the band. I was not a musician. I was in the band.
And so did the band instructor say, maybe you should try track?
No, he left me in there. I guess I was good enough to be one of the not so good ones.
All right.
I wore the uniform.
Who got you to come out for the track team?
Well, I was actually in Columbus, Georgia. I was in the first year of integration.
Oh, okay.
So when we integrated, I think we had, I want to say 9 high schools in Columbus, Georgia. 2 of them were basically black high schools, so you had the black population all in 2 high schools.
Sure.
So when we had integration, now you've got the population spread out over nine schools, I think it was.
Okay.
So I'm thinking, I was like, well, hey, maybe this is my chance
Sure.
to go and be an athlete. And I think it was a bit of
these guys aren't
irony.
as fast as those Fifth Avenue guys.
Well, ironically, when I get to the new high school, Jordan High School, when I get there the first week, all of the great athletes, all of the great black athletes in the city had ironically been scheduled to go to the same school.
That's sad,
so
right.
we literally had not only the best black athletes from the school that I was in, but also from the other black school. They all ended up at my new school.
I wonder who that athletic director was that maneuvered that
let's
one.
put it like this. At the end of that first week, we started looking around, was like, well, they realized they had messed up. So
Okay.
they transferred a bunch of people out and kind of thinned it out, But anyway, by this
all
point, I'm
right.
saying, hey, I think this is my opportunity to be an athlete. So,
Okay, that makes sense.
didn't want to play football, didn't make the basketball team, and so
Track was it.
I got a chance to do track.
And what kind of formal training did you get at that time? Did you have a good coach? Because you go from really just running for running's sake to you set a state record that still stands in the 400.
I think it may still be
That
there.
is
It may
crazy.
still be there.
That's nutty.
I had a really good coach.
Okay.
And
What
one
was
of the
his
things
name?
Coach Walker Scott.
Walker Scott, okay.
And ironically, he had taught me science.
Oh,
He
okay.
taught me biology, I think, in the 9th grade. He taught me physical science in the 11th grade, and then I went out for track and field, and he ended up being my coach.
That made a difference that you had him as a teacher?
Yeah, because I really felt like, and I've been blessed in my career with coaches. I thought he cared about me as an individual, and stuff, and I felt like,
Sure.
he knew me and I knew him,
That's really important. I think that's one of the important things, especially for high school age, if not middle school age kids, is when their teachers do come and see them in an athletic situation, or when their coaches can see them in an academic situation, to get that sense of the whole young person. I think it makes it more effective either way. So that's it. Now I understand that you are in that high school Hall of Fame.
Yes.
Did they have like a ceremony? You came back and you said, "Oh yeah."
Yeah, they inducted me in a couple other people a few years ago.
That's
and,
fun.
And that was really
fun.
exciting and rewarding.
Your
To
coach
be able
still
to get
around?
back there. No. He
Okay.
passed a couple of years ago.
Okay.
And everything. But I enjoyed being able to be inducted into that Hall of Fame.
So tell me something. How beyond the track and field? So your next stop was now college.
Yes, I
Troy?
went to Troy. It was Troy State University
Troy
at that
State.
time.
How
now
did
it's
you
University.
how did you choose that college?
I had, I'm going to say I had 30, 40 offers.
That would be
Scholarship
basically every
offers
college that
throughout-
looked up the times from the Georgia State Finals said.
Yeah,
Hey,
I had
how
offers
about
anywhere
this?
from California, and
Yeah.
stuff. But at that time, my father was sick, and I wanted to be close to home.
Okay.
And so I narrowed it down to a school in state
All
in
right.
Troy University. And so they didn't like the recruiting process, basically from the in-state, school.
Okay.
And I took one visit to Troy University. And one of the things that what I really liked about Troy University, when I went there, they treated me like I was family, like they all knew me and
Okay.
everybody. And obviously, I'm there for the weekend. I don't know anybody. And what had happened was we had a young man from my hometown that was a senior at Troy.
Okay. Oh, all right.
And
that makes a difference.
his coach had told what ended up being my coach at Troy University, Doc Anderson. He had called and told my coach, my college coach, about me.
Oh,
And
wow.
since we had an athlete from Columbus, Georgia, to go to Troy and had become one of the top sprinters in the country at that time, then they kind of listened to each other, and
Okay.
they recruited me and offered me a scholarship.
Sure, that makes a big difference. When you have that frame of reference,
Mm-hmm.
somebody from your own community. So you're an All-American at Troy.
Yes.
You set their records in the 400 meters.
Yes.
You sure do like setting school records.
it was
Nice,
fun. It was
nice.
fun.
Did you
know.
have Olympic ambitions at that point? Did it
I'll say no.
come to mind?
I said no. I was naive. Had never been an athlete or anything. Didn't watch a lot of sports, on TV or anything. So when I went to college, because I was fortunate in the first year in high school, that 2 or 3 months, I was undefeated and I was national champion. I was undefeated and I was state champion. Okay.
Right.
Then I go to school as a freshman. I'm undefeated and conference champion, conference record holder. So my sophomore year in college, I lost my first race,
Okay.
in college. And I think at that time I ended up I was one of the top 10 athletes in the country at the end of the season.
Do you
know.
remember who you lost that race to?
No, I
Okay.
I think it was no, it wasn't a conference championship because I won that. I don't remember who I lost, but I
Interesting.
Was
Okay.
undefeated for about 3 years, first 3
Wow.
years of my career.
Wow. What kind of mentality does that bring to the starting blocks or to the training? Does the fact that you were undefeated, did that continue to drive you to stay undefeated, or were you continually just thinking about improving your time?
I guess a little of both. Two things happen during that time. One, I don't like to lose, okay? And two, the 400 meters hurts. So it's like, why am I going to run the 400 meters and hurt like this and not win? If I'm going to hurt,
Right.
then hey,
Right.
I ought to win. So it's like I'm not out here. I ended up being a physical education, major, but I wasn't out here for my health. I wasn't out there trying to be, trying to
The
stay in
400
shape. So
hurts,
I'm
so
like,
I'm not
hey,
coming out
if
here to lose.
it's going to hurt, I might as well try to win.
That's
So I
awesome.
always, gave my best
Love it.
or, whatever, and went out with an attitude to do good, improve, and try to win.
And it appears as though you always kept your mind on academics all the way through. Like that seems to be something that you knew was an important part of this whole process.
Well, I ironically, and I like to share, with athletes because the true story. When I first went to college, I was not focused on athletics at all. I was an athlete, but the studies and stuff like that was not a part of my priority. By the end of my second year, I'm nationally ranked in the 400 meters. My grades are horrible and everything. And I looked at it, and I kind of had a introspective, and I was like, okay, I'm the oldest of 4 kids. I'm the first one, to ever go to college. I can't flunk out. I
Yeah.
can't go back home.
Wow.
I came here to be in college. I've got to get a degree
Yeah.
and go back home. So I actually started studying.
That's-
And I did not know how to study. To be honest with you, I learned how to study,
Sure.
so that I could,
Wow.
be successful in the classroom also.
How did that process work? How did you learn to study?
Well, start talking to the teachers and working with tutors and stuff, and literally what I was doing at that time when I'm in class, I would write down what I thought I could not remember. So when I get in class, I've forgotten the other stuff that I should know.
Sure.
And I only got the stuff written down. I probably got 25% of what I do know. And if you only remember part of 25%, that's not a good average to actually pass, classes. So I had to go talk to the instructors, work with tutors and stuff, and learn how, to study.
And I would imagine you would lean on what was your athletic background then,
Mm-hmm.
which was training. So the work didn't scare you. I think it's a matter of having technique.
Yeah, just a matter of like I had to take the attitude of training into the classroom, of finding out what you need to do and pay attention to it, and take that into the classroom and learn how to study and how to apply those skills.
So now you graduate Troy,
Yes.
and you get a degree in physical education.
Yes.
And do you immediately come back to coaching the high school level?
Yes, I immediately go home
Teach and coach?
and coach, teach and coach in high school for 3 years.
Is that about the time when you stayed in the Olympic process and wanted to move towards the trials?
Yeah, I had run in the 1976 Olympic trials, and I graduated in '77.
Okay.
So I had already, and I finished as an alternate, made the finals. At that time, they were taking the top 6 in the 400 meters would make the Olympic team.
For 76 or 70 or 80, both.
In 76.
76.
I went
Okay,
in
and you were an
76 and
alternate.
80, and
Okay.
I finished, I think, 8th that year. And then at that time, they would take the top 6 would make the Olympic team.
I see.
Now, they'll go down into the rounds and take 10, 12, and people run the first round and the second round. Well, I did not. I got sick the night before the finals. And I mean, it was all I could do to get in the starting blocks to start the race. I'm not making an excuse. Hey, it's what
But-
happened. It is what it is.
And we hear this periodically about Olympic athletes, and it's tough.
So I had to go back, train for another 4 years. And at this time, I'm home, a wife, a child, a job,
Sure. When
and,
did you
and,
train?
and training,
When? Early or late? When did you train?
And actually, I would train late. I'd teach all day. I would coach, and then when practice was over, then I'd go out and suit up. So now 7 or 8 o'clock, I'm starting to train, and I still got a wife and a
Sure.
kid.
You got
and
things
a
to do when you
child
get
at
home.
Yes, yes.
Somebody's going to take out the trash, put the kids to sleep.
Still got to do all
You
of
still
that.
got to do that. Now,
Yes.
I'm always fascinated when athletes do stay into the next Olympic cycle, because that's such a commitment for those years. So did you just stayed in routine? Were you still the PE teacher?
Yes.
For those years going into the 80 Olympic trials?
Yes, I coached. I taught high school. I coached. Coached high school. I traveled with my team, and then my college coach was actually my coach. He coached me by mail. He would mail me the workouts. I would read them.
What?
And then go out and do them.
Oh, that's fascinating.
One of the things that I think is really fascinating, the workouts he would give me when I was in college that I did not like and might grumble about. Now I'm getting a letter in the mail and looking at them going, okay.
Come
And I'd go out and do the same
Wow,
workout
that's
that I
really
grumbled
something.
about.
I've never heard anybody getting coached by mail
So-
like that.
Hey, this back in the day there was no, I could not
Wow.
stay there and train in Troy, Alabama. I guess I could have tried to get a
Yeah, that's
job and
something
stayed
else.
there, but I moved back home
That is something else.
and worked there and try to have a profession.
Where were the 80 Olympic trials?
Eugene.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
I think I do
76
remember
and
that.
80 was in Eugene.
Now, by that time they had the trials, we're still a couple months away. Well, I'm curious because I think Jimmy Carter announced the boycott in the spring sometime, maybe March or April or something. Were the trials after or before that?
I don't
wonder.
remember.
I
I
mean-
know that we were aware that we
were aware.
weren't going to get to go.
Oh,
and
that's
at that
rough,
time,
huh?
I finished 7th. Then the top 6 go.
Oh,
so
look out!
you
look
know,
out.
I'm and they took some alternates and some different, you know,
Did
people
that-
kind of moved around. You might have been. I know one time there was a friend of mine. He was in the 400 hurdles,
Mm-hmm.
so they moved him over to run the rounds on the 400. I'm going, oh no, you know. So that kind of hurt a little bit, not knowing that you weren't going to be able, to go.
I would imagine, and
Yeah.
but also I would imagine it forged a fire in you to continue to do great things because that's what you go on to do. So when do you come back to your college, your alma mater, to coach?
I went back in 80. Went back as a
Okay.
graduate assistant in 1980. Did that for a year. And then at the end of that year, my boss at that time, who was also a Troy University alumni, he took another job. And so I happened to be in the right place at the right time, and they hired me
look out.
to run the program. And at that time, the programs were separate. And I think within a year, they combined the program, men's and women's
men's and
program.
women's.
So
Oh,
I
okay.
became men's and women's head coach.
And did you use in effect the same workout routine and same curriculum for coaching women at the time?
Yeah. It was a lot of the same program, and obviously it's different genders.
Sure.
So you had to modify or change the program, somewhat. There's a different, and I don't want to sound mean or derogatory, but there's a different mentality between the two genders. So I just had to make sure that I would change my philosophy to relate to the individuals that I'm working with and realize that one size doesn't fit all.
Sure. Well, and that could be said for either gender, anybody. I mean, by not coaching everybody the same, you're actually being fair. You're
Yes.
meeting everybody where they need to be met.
Got to be able to get the most out of each individual, and that doesn't matter what gender that you're coaching. You got to relate. Even if you're in a team sport such as football or basketball, you got to work with the individual positions.
No doubt.
To be able to maximize their potential.
Now, I think the Title IX was 1972, roughly. So I would imagine every year, exponentially, the quality of female athlete got better,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
Because, I mean, the numbers exploded. I think there may be 300,000 girls playing sports prior to 72 high school.
I think at one
And it's
point
like
at
3
Troy,
million by,
I think I think
within
if
10 years or
memory
10
serves me right, we had one young lady on the women's track team, and then that was more so like when I was in college, and then by the time I got back there and I became head coach, now we've got a program of probably 30, 40.
Yeah, isn't that something?
On the program.
That legislation worked.
Yeah.
Even though it wasn't necessarily intended for athletics, it's where it's had its most significant impact. That's something else. So tell me about it. Once you're passing on a lot of this knowledge at Troy and you're having great success, is it because of that success that Tennessee came calling, or was it because you felt like it was a right time to move up, or how did that whole transition to you coaching at U of T work?
Well, I think what happened is my philosophy is and was to put the best possible product out there that we can have. When I went to Troy was an NAIA school. It's currently a Division I.
Sure is.
School. So
Now it is,
Troy,
yeah,
we went
that's
from
right.
NAIA, we went to Division II. But I like to say I had a Division I type attitude. I thought that we should run as close to the Division I type times that we possibly could. I took my Division II team to the Division I campuses, to the Division I, meets. We went to the Auburns, the Alabamas, the Floridas.
Nice.
We went to all of those programs, and I expected my guy, give me your best.
Sure.
If we beat those programs, because I don't think we are a Division II athlete. We are an athlete, and we either gonna get first or we not gonna get first.
Okay.
So that was the attitude that I took, into the program, and it worked to the point of my last year at Troy. we was running as well as any Division One team in the country. We could run against, I'll say, 75 to 80 of the Division One teams.
You know, I followed athletics, obviously sports and stuff, but out here in Los Angeles, and I got the feeling. Well, I recognize the name Troy because that's what they would call the USC football team, the Men of Troy.
Okay.
And I said, oh, so there's a college named Troy. What do you know? But I remember it coming on my radar, I think, as a track. And now that I think back, because I thought they're not a D1 school, and I kind of remember like them putting up. Some
we would
good
run.
athletes.
We were able to run. I had a couple of athletes that qualified for the Olympic trials. Obviously, they did not make the team, but they ran the national championships. They ran Olympic trial type events, and so I basically
That's something else.
was able to go to the University of Tennessee because my Division II athletes was running Division I times.
We're running,
And
now at the same time you're coaching at Troy,
Mm-hmm.
you earn your master's degree.
Yes.
So
yes.
what were you going to school night, day, both? Who knows?
I was coaching full time at Troy. I was in grad school. I was running professionally.
Look,
A wife and a kid.
you ever sleep?
You
ever get
know.
a chance to sleep?
I would go over and stand up in the corner beside the bed, blink 3 times, and then go
And
back
then-
to work or
then-
practice.
Yep, that was
You
your
know,
life.
I had to get it all done. I didn't have an option.
Wow.
If I wanted to try to be successful in it, I had to fit it all in.
That is something else. In Troy, I don't want to miss this. So through 1988, you won 7 Gulf South Conference track championships, named Coach of the Year 7 times, and 26 of your athletes went All-American. That's putting it together.
Yeah,
And you get a
that's
master's degree, and you're raising a family.
Yes.
Woo,
Yes.
Coach O, busy. All right. So now you're moving on to the U of T. What was the difference in the facilities and what Troy had, and then to get to U of T? Was there a big leap in what you had to work with, let alone the athlete?
That was a difference. Because the University of Tennessee and Division I programs, just with the budget and the resources, that they had there. For example, when I was at Troy, I was the head coach. We had a 26-passenger minibus. I drove the minibus. I had to make a decision on whether to take an athletic trainer with me or to take another athlete.
Right.
And, you want to take the athlete,
Oh,
but
my
you don't
goodness.
want to have an injury and not have a trainer,
Oh, my goodness.
there with you. I was the manager most of the time, myself. You get to the University of Tennessee, you got a bus driver. I had 3 managers that was assigned, to me, just the resources. At Troy, I was head coach, and I had 100 men and women on my program.
Oh, my
And I
goodness.
get to the University of Tennessee, I'm in charge of 18 athletes with 6 volunteer coaches and 3 managers
Isn't
that
that
assisted
something?
me.
Isn't that something? Wow.
With that.
And so now you know what you're up against. I mean, you're really seeing it from the other side. What did you remember most about being at University of Tennessee?
Just the opportunity to recruit athletes that not only could potentially be world-class athletes, but a lot of them ended up, being world-class athletes, and being able to be a part of the foundation, of the sport, and from the perspective of traveling, throughout the country, and being able to be around. A lot of upper level, type athletes, and feeling like, well, okay, this is where that I'm having an opportunity to work with people from the same type background that I have, and put them, into the realm of the possibility of being Olympians and stuff like that.
Nice. Now, you got an interesting story in 1989 when you founded Bags by Coach O. So I love this story. So would you share with us?
I had always wanted to own my own business.
Okay.
I've had a job since I was some of my 5th grade year, and I worked for a gentleman that I worked at an antique shop, and I did the maintenance, and stuff like that. But the gentleman that owned the shop, he owned the shop, and he would come in He'd come in about 10. He'd go to lunch at 12. He'd come back from lunch about 2. He'd go home at 4, you know, and I watched this business. And I was like, man, this is just
I want
great,
that guy's job.
you know, to be able to do that. So I had a goal from the 5th grade to own my own business.
Fair
and
enough.
I went to college to get a business degree. And I get to college, and at this time there again, I wasn't studying. I was an athlete. I was in school. And I had a college roommate who was a senior. And I think he was a math major. And so I thought, you know, he was a very intelligent young man, and he was struggling in calculus or something like that. And so I'm going like, okay, now he's smart and he's struggling. I ain't very bright. How in the world am I going to get a degree? How am I going to pass these math classes?
Okay.
So I literally changed my major.
Oh.
I changed my major to physical education.
Okay.
Because my logic was physical education had to be half of it was mental, the other half was physical. So I figure I'm an athlete, I ought to have that 50%.
You got that going.
And if I get half of the mental, that's 25%. Now I got 75%.
you're all
and
right.
right around
You're making the mark.
75% is a C.
That's right.
So I can pass.
That's
so
good. That's a good.
I changed
been a
my
philosophy
major
major.
there. But then when I get to the University of Tennessee, when I first got there, my athletic director, Mr. Doug Dick, he was the athletic director there. He came in. I had just got there, and he came in. He said, "I want to send you to Dr. Leroy's Walker Minority Seminar." So Dr. Walker had a seminar over at North Carolina Central, and he literally brought in, I think, about 26 of us, and we spent 3 weeks over there. And what he did was he brought in successful business people, and they literally told us their life story. They didn't tell us how to become. They didn't teach us to become successful. They taught us their life story.
Sure.
One of the life stories they I told, and I don't remember the gentleman's name, but he had a day job on the 100th floor overlooking lake area, whatever, in Chicago. It was bored, 6-figure salary, you know. And I'm going, how can you be bored with a six-figure salary on a corner office, you know? But he resigned, started his own business, and his first customer was the company that he resigned from. Another quick story they told us, getting ready for the 96 Olympics in Atlanta, there was a gentleman who had started out as the groundskeeper there at Fulton County Stadium. Well, when I meet him, he is the guy that built the track, had the track built, designed the track, designed it in a fashion that when the Olympics was over, they tore up part of the track and built a baseball field or something on the side of it. So you built a facility designed to be destroyed.
Yeah.
You know, so I'm sitting there going, you started out being the grounds, got raking the ground, and now you're building a building that's going to be destroyed. So I went back to my original premise of the fact that I always wanted to own my own business. And I was like, you know, if all of these people can do this, I think I could do this. So I went back home. I called up one of my college teammates, and I said, well, hey, man, I'm thinking about starting my own business. Here's the product. My parent company is called Bags by Coach O, and I basically had a line of bags for Division II and NAIA-type schools because your Division I schools have the Nike contracts.
Sure, they have
and
their
all that. They don't have the products. You know, they have all of the products, and the small schools don't. So I started selling bags to the smaller
And you saw a need
schools.
there.
I saw a need.
So
And-
people
and-
carrying their own equipment. And you said, wait a second. We can make something that's affordable,
Yes.
but also functional.
Yes.
And I saw something, and anybody from grassroots to the Olympians might have your bag.
Yes, and one of my former boss at the University of Tennessee, he told me a story one day, and he was on, he was American record holder in the steeplechase, Doug Brown, and he told me, he said, you know what? He was on the Olympic staff, and I think he was in Tokyo or something at the Olympic Training Center. He said, you know, we give the Olympians all of this apparel and merchandise and sunglasses and all of this stuff. And he said, I'm at the practice track in Tokyo, I believe it was, and he said, and in walked a kid with a doggone bag by Coach O. Out of all this stuff that we give the kid, this kid walks in with a bag by Coach O. And I'm sitting there going,
Yeah. The kid's like, I like
you
this
know,
bag.
It was a product that they liked, and the kid brought it with him.
Did you design anything that set it apart from the rest of the bags? from being an ex-athlete? Did you kind of know what you wanted your bag to
Well,
be like?
the way I ended up with the bags, I was in my hometown of Columbus, Georgia, and I'm riding down the road one day, and I see this store, and it's my hometown. I'm going like, so what's this store? You know, so I wanted to know what it was because I've never seen it before. So I go in. It's a company that sells bags. Well, my first bag was basically, I'll say it was a toiletries bag. But what they had enlarged it. So it was 2 times the size of your standard toiletries bag.
Okay.
So when I looked at it, I'm going, wait a minute, we got all these track athletes, and when they get through running, they're walking around, with their shoes in their hands.
Sure.
So I said, well, I think that this bag would be good for, a track bag. So I took off my size 13s, put them in the bag. I was like, hey, some more room. So I took all the stuff out of my pocket, put it in the bag. I still got room. So I'm going, I think everything that I'm wearing when I get ready to compete, my sweats and everything, I think I can put it in this bag. So I put everything in the bag, and I checked the zipper, and stuff, because it was real inexpensive. Even at that time, it was inexpensive, but it was a quality product. So I sent that bag to one of my former college teammates and said, hey, I'm thinking about starting my own business. What do you think? He said, send me 2 dozen. I don't have a business, but I got an order. So I was like, well, hey, let me try this. And so I started calling up friends of mine and asking them.
You certainly made your contacts in the industry.
Friends
Being a coach
and
and
stuff
an athlete,
help me get started. They support me to this day. And so I'm so thankful, and I try to tell all my athletes and people around me, a lot of things are built on relationships.
Sure. Absolutely.
And if you can develop relationships, be a friend.
Yeah. Absolutely. Wow. That's awesome. What brought you to the AAU? Now, I would imagine as you're an athlete, you probably had an AAU card, and you knew of it. Right.
Well, one of the things that I'm real proud of, I was looking back at some of my memorabilia, and I found a bib number from I think 1978 AAU National Championships. I think that was in California somewhere.
Look out.
When you turn 21 like I am, you don't remember stuff like you used to. But I'm proud of the fact that I ran in an AAU National Championship. And I'm talking about on the elite. Level. And then I ended up, came to AAU. They had an opening. AAU Junior Olympic Games.
Okay.
Came to Knoxville, Tennessee. And by this time, I'm doing event management.
And this is while you're at UT?
While at the University of Tennessee. We started a spring sports event management. We had an event management department, but they did the major sports. So we started the small, sports. So
sure.
I ended up, doing that. And when the AAU Junior Olympic Games came to Knoxville, I was the contact for the event to come, to Knoxville. And so when they left, they had that was an opening, and they asked me would I be interested.
On staff with AAU?
And being the meet director for the track meet.
All right.
And so I found out that I could keep my day job and be the meet director.
Yeah.
So I kept my day job, and I was the meet director for the event. And after doing it, I was like, man, I think I could just do this. I can afford to do this full time. Work from home, have more free time, do what I love, and still be around the same people.
Oh, that's wonderful.
So I left the University of Tennessee and became AAU Junior Olympic Games meet director. And when we first started.
Isn't it a blessing to do what you love?
It's awesome. It really is. Yeah.
Yeah. Wow. So you were working, and did you start a club at this time, or were you just working administratively?
I was just working administratively, doing the meets, and stuff for them.
And you concurrently, so Knoxville Track Club. Is that yours or?
Well, I was actually on the board of directors.
Okay.
Knoxville is home, so I served a number of years on the board of directors there at Knoxville Track Club.
And USATF meet directors, and then also NCAA and SEC.
We had several meets at the University of Tennessee, AAU meets, USATF, championships.
So you had a couple open hours in the day. You just weren't feeling right, so you took on 3 more board positions. You're like, this doesn't seem.
We've hosted a lot of events while I was doing that. SEC championships, the NCAA championship was at Knoxville in track and cross country. So I got an opportunity to work with a lot of people throughout the industry.
That's beautiful. Coach O, what do you think is next for you with the AAU? How do you like where the AAU's going and the track program with the AAU now?
I'm real excited about what we have going on. This was a record year for us. We've in the last couple of years, our membership have gone up about 19.8.
That's a big jump.
Percent. We had a record number of athletes, record number of members this year. We hosted a record number of events. And one of the things that I think what I like the most about is that AAU allows me the opportunity to interact with the youth of the country.
Of course.
I got lucky with my history and some things, and I like to try to provide those opportunities and directions, for other kids, and stuff, and give them opportunity to kind of, for me to help them establish some of their dreams or realize some things that are possible, and then provide opportunities and the direction for them to get there.
That's a win
So
all the way around.
I'm really excited about the opportunity, to work with AAU and the things and where I think that we can go.
You just keep winning.
We're trying.
You just keep winning. What do you attribute to the jump in membership? Is there a particular district, or do you think the events being run
I think
better?
it's philosophy.
Okay.
We pride ourselves on running quality events.
Mm-hmm.
In terms of track meet, there's a perception that you go to a track meet and you're there all day.
Mm-hmm.
Well, you may be there all day, but I think that we try to focus also on the fact of mom and dad. You say we go from 5-year-old kids to 18-year-old kids, okay? So if mom and dad are at the track meet and they're bored, there's nothing for them to do. We try to make sure that there's vendors and different things around for them to do, activities so that they're enjoying themselves.
Absolutely.
It's about the family, okay?
Making an event.
Well, if mom and dad are bored and they don't want to come back, then the 5-year-old is never going to get there. He can't come back. He can't drive. He can't pay the fees and stuff and come. So we are excited about the opportunity to provide wholesome environments, positive competitive opportunities is what we say. And so the whole family comes in, they feel like they're a part of what's going on. We've reached out to corporate partners such as FlowTrack so that we are able to put the events out there so mom and dad and grandparents who can't be there can see it. My mom saw me run 2 times in my career for a total of 45.8 seconds. 2 times.
Yeah.
And so we pride ourselves on being a family-oriented type group, and we want mom and dad and granddads to come and be a part of it and
that
enjoy
community.
themselves.
It's so important, and you see it in all different disciplines of sport. But that sense of community is so important.
Well, and that's a core principle,
Always,
for us. It's about an opportunity not only for the athletes, but for their parents and stuff also.
Doing great stuff. Now, Coach, you get to take a rapid fire questions. We'll see what you can do, and then you got to take a quiz. Okay? We never know what the quiz is going to be, but we know what these questions are, and I'll see how you do. You ready?
No, but you're going to do it anyway.
What's your phone number as a kid?
443235529.
I love it. I can always read it. First pet's name?
Blackie.
Nice. Favorite sport that you played?
Track.
Okay, fair enough. What's your favorite sport to watch now?
I had this question a long time ago. Somebody asked me, and it didn't go well. Track and field.
Okay. Staying true to the game. What's the favorite sports team ever? And I'll extend it to track and field, particular, group. Anything that you either coached or you witnessed.
None track. I would say Michael Jordan in the championship years.
Bulls years.
Yes.
Yeah, that was something. They were like the Beatles of basketball. Yes. They were drawing a lot of people to the sport. What's your favorite movie?
A current one's probably Shaft.
All right. What's your favorite band? Back then or now?
Earth, Wind, and Fire.
Nice. Favorite board game?
Monopoly.
Monopoly. It's got a relaunch on the backside of this podcast.
Me and my grandson, in the family, Monopoly.
Going strong. All right, here's some quick ones. Mayo or Miracle Whip?
Mayo.
All right. Tacos or burgers?
Burgers.
Cake or pie?
Cake.
Beer or cocktail?
Beer.
Ice cream or frozen yogurt?
Ice cream.
Bacon or sausage?
Sausage.
Cats or dogs?
Dogs.
Spiders, do you kill them or put them outdoors?
When I tell you I kill them, do I get
It's
a
all right,
negative point?
No, no, you don't. Most
If
people,
they're in the house, they ain't got no business in there.
that's right. See, that makes sense. Okay, you did really well on the quiz. Now comes the pop culture quiz. And we never know what we're going to cover here. That could be a TV show, something else. Marley, will you spin the dial and tell me what we're doing
So you
today?
know everyone says kill the spiders.
Yeah. Yeah, you're okay there. You're okay
All
there.
right, I'm gonna spin the wheel. Let's see what we get. Ooh, surprise on this one.
What's the
It's Magnum
surprise?
PI.
Come on. The Magnum PI television series from 1980 to 88 on CBS. You familiar with it?
Yes. Tom Selleck.
Oh, we may have an expert here. It comes right in line with our the movement we support, which calls the Heroes Movement, which supports veterans training. So, speaking of veterans, Magnum, Rick, and TC, they were buddies in Hawaii because they fought together in what war?
I know I don't know that. I know I don't know that. I know they were all in the military together. If you'd have asked me the branches of service, I'd have a guess, but I don't know what war.
It was Vietnam.
Okay.
Okay. So, what branch of the military was Magnum from?
You cheated. You cheated. Air Force? Because whatchamacallit is a helicopter pilot.
Oh, right.
I don't know.
TC was a helicopter guy.
Yeah.
Yeah. Magnum was Navy.
Okay.
All right. I think you might get this one. Magnum played 2 sports at the Naval Academy. Can you name either one of them?
Well, I'm gonna say basketball.
There you go. Basketball and football. He was
Okay.
a QB for the football
Okay.
team.
Oh.
All
okay.
right. All right. And here's your last question, because you're doing all right so far. Who was the major domo? Who oversaw all of the Robin's Nest
Higgins?
estate? Yeah, you got Hickey, baby. I love it. It's hard, man. Higgins, you did all right. You did great on the quiz.
All right, thank you. Thank
Well,
you.
you keep winning, Coach, and it's a pleasure to have you as part of this, and it's good, really good, and I have a lot of respect for what you're doing for young people.
Well, I appreciate the opportunity. I really like what I do, and anytime I have an opportunity to kind of share or be in front of people, I love the opportunity because I love AAU and what we do in the sport of track and field. So I
That's
thank you
great.
so much for the opportunity.
What a great story. What a great
Thank
story.
you.
Thank you, Coach.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
All right. Sports Stories with Denny Lennon is supported by the AAU. Find a local event and join at aausports.org. And remember, you can catch your favorite amateur sports live stream, replays, and highlights at ballertv.com. Sports Stories, along with East Bay, supports the Heroes Movement, a nonprofit that bridges the gap from mental or physical therapy to getting strong again through strength and conditioning workouts. This free service is available for any veteran of the United States Armed Forces. Visit heroesmovementusa.org for more information. Sports Stories with Denny Lennon is a production of Sports Stories, Inc. and is available on Apple Podcasts and YouTube or wherever you listen and watch. Don't forget to subscribe, rate, and give us a review. It really helps spread the word. You can find all our social media links, archives, and other info on our website at sportsstoriespodcast.com. Original music for Sports Stories is courtesy of Lennon Music Productions. Special thanks to the John R. Wooden Course and Wooden's Wisdom. Sports Stories staff includes Marley Rice, Teresa Dolan, Bob McCall, Michael Lennon, Sienna Lennon, Brad Lawson, Christine Jimbo, and Jake Downey. Now it's time to go to Coach's Corner, where one of our valued subscribers reads one of Coach John Wooden's favorite poems.
Hi, I'm Lily Chabelle. I have dyslexia, and I'm going to be reading I Keep 6 Honest Serving Men by Rudyard Kipling. I keep 6 honest, serving men. They taught me all I know. Their names are what and why and when and how and where and who.
If any one of our listeners would like to read one of Coach Wooden's favorite poems for a future show, go to our website at sportsstoriespodcast.com and click on the Coach's Corner link. As always, we leave you with a song from the band Venice.
forgotten train, lighthouse standing alone. Sidewalk smells of rain, autumn whispers of home. Once again I feel the fading sun of loves I never lost and wars I never won. Memories of things I have not done. Houses never lived and rivers never run. In a candle's glow, hear a church bell slowly cry tune. Stables in the snow, a willow cradles the moon. Once again I feel the fading sun of loves I never lost and wars I never won. Memories of things I have not done. Houses never lived and rivers never run. Though I'm not one to believe it all anymore, so I let it come and I let it fall far away.
Kick it out, Book!